Thank you, Coach Fuchs, for joining me today. Coach Fuchs is the offensive line coach at the University of Buffalo. Coach, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving just a quick rundown of kind of your background for people who may not know you.
Sure. I'm originally from North Dakota. I played at North Dakota State way back in the day and started my coaching career probably 94. And then coach everywhere from NAI football, Division III, Division II, a couple Division IIs around the country. Southern Illinois was the FCS, and then back to North Dakota State at my alma mater. Most recently was there for 5 years, and then 5 years at Wyoming, and now at Buffalo, where I actually am good friends with Lance Leipold from back at Nebraska Omaha. So didn't name all the schools, but there's a number of them in there. So.
I mean, like I said, you are the offensive line coach, so we'll just kind of get right into it. Um, how do you, and I'll kind of start with this. How do you prioritize your practice time? Obviously, O line coaches kind of get more than everybody else, O line and D line guys. So how do you prioritize your practice time? Is it based off kind of what you're installing that day or working on that day, or is there a grand kind of install plan? How do you prioritize your practice time?
Sure. It'd be a little bit different in fall camp and in spring football. You actually have a lot more time in working those things there. But in fall camp, the priority would go to what we are installing that day. Now, we're not installing tons of different things. So whether it's some sort of inside zone combinations that we're working, or wide zone combinations, or some gap scheme stuff. I mean, all those things will get worked. And then obviously our pass set stuff. We do, I can't tell you that I work 50-50 equal time run and pass, but I know I've worked been able to work a lot more pass over the years, where you probably feel more comfortable with the run, but as a younger coach, but have really incorporated a lot more pass stuff in my individual. So as a priority goes in fall camp, it would work that way. Now, week to week in a seasonal setting, it might be something along the lines of, obviously we're seeing an odd front, or we're seeing, whatever type of front we're seeing, we might certainly want to work combinations against the different things that we would see, or pass setting, different things that we might see, some stuff like that. So that's where that would change a little bit. Obviously, you're just dealing with technically one front, I guess, in fall camp and spring ball, but you have to be able to, I guess, easily incorporate the different fronts, I guess, you see throughout the season. So those types of things take a little bit more priority during the season.
Awesome, coach. You kind of mentioned pass pro there. You guys did a really good job at least I should say you were. I think if my memory serves me correctly, um, you were top 10 in fewest sacks allowed. What do you kind of focus on in terms of technique wise drills? Like what does your pass pro portion of your practice typically look like, and what are you focusing on?
So this is probably a lot longer answer, but I would say about 4 years ago now, maybe, I ran into Howard Mudd and asked to come out and visit him in Seattle. I was down at a Broncos practice when I was at Wyoming, and flew out there and sat there for a day and learned as much as I could about pass pro from him. He's a little bit different in the idea. It's not a pocket, or a kick slide with depth. It's more of a dish set, expanding the pocket, really not backing up. And it took me a while and probably still continuing to learn about that. But the idea of setting short, expanding the pocket, those things made a lot of sense to me. And, had began to utilize that a little bit at Wyoming, and certainly was, I guess, full throttle when I got to Buffalo. So we changed a few things, especially what the interior guys were doing. I thought the tackles really expanded the pocket pretty well here before I got here. But the idea there is Howard had, I don't know, I'll throw it out there, maybe about 7 total drills. Just do these drills and understand why you're doing these drills and what these drills are for. So realistically, there are probably 3 drills that are done every single day, whether it's just a simple hot drill versus a power rush, tackles, pass setting, different widths of defensive ends, you know, short setting and transitioning within that set, not getting your hips locked, keeping your hips opened up, those types of things we do every single day. So without going into the exact specifics, the nice thing that I think Howard gave me was, hey, this is all you need to do. Do this, be good at these fundamentals, okay? It wasn't like, okay, now we're going to work one-handed punches. Now we're going to work pulling an arm back. We're going to work this set. We're going to work that set. We just do this. This is what we do, okay? And they know whether, my guys at least would know, it's third down and whatever, or first down. This is how we're going to pass it. This is how we're going to manage the dish, so to speak. You know, and among other those, I think it's worked out really well. But along with those things, you know, we have an offense coordinator, Coach Koldnicki, and Coach Zabrowski, our quarterback coach. He's the co-OC as well. But we do a number of different things that are going to help us out as far as not giving up sacks. Whether we're going to go tempo on third down, whether we're going to throw hot, going to throw quicks, chip or bump defensive ends, you name it, we're probably doing it to help out the offensive line, because that in itself, that skill, you know, putting a tackle on some monster defensive end, you know, every time you're in a third down situation is, you know, I'm sorry, that's not really where I want to live. And was fortunate enough to be at Buffalo here, where we can manage, I guess, our passing situations in a lot of different ways. And I think that's helped us out quite a bit. And I mean, shoot, last year was eight total sacks. We were second in the country, and you know, probably got a little stingy or a little grumpy about giving up those 8 too. But I know it wasn't just the offensive line. There was a lot that went into that as well. But that is kind of, the drills are just fundamentals, completely fundamental drills. Don't get specialized in anything that we do. We keep it fundamental, and then do a lot of multiple things when we're throwing the ball, and it's worked well, obviously. So.
Now, you mentioned 2 things there that I'm going to and I'll start with this one. You mentioned drill repetition, kind of the same 7. Do you use that same philosophy for just drills in general? Do you just, like, we all know coaches, some coaches have 100 drills, some coaches have like 10 to 15. Do you more lean on that 10 to 15 side and just be really repetitive and work on technique over raw variety?
Yeah, I don't even know if I have 15 run drills. I'm going to say this too. You know, in 20, what is it going to be, 26 years of coaching, and I used to do this, you know, drill what's real. You know, what you're seeing out there is what you're drilling, working on this stuff, getting highly specialized in a lot of different things. And I've probably done a 180 on that the last couple years, because ultimately, it's chaos theory when you're out there and you're blocking a guy. I mean, you could try to block him the same way, you know, 1,000 different times. You can get 1,000 different, you know, little subtle things that are going to happen that are going to just be different, you know. So what I learned, and it's been very helpful for me, is just based on 5 fundamentals. Like stance and start, our angle of departure is critical. You know, when it comes to run game, our angle of departure and how we approach a block, getting out of that stance is a big deal. That's number 1. I'd say the second thing you would say is butt down. Everyone would say you want your butt down, right? Lower center of mass, hands inside or tight elbows would be a third thing. Wide base is critical. You know, whether it's pass blocking or run blocking, all these things fit, but wide base is a big deal that, you know, we're teaching as a fundamental over and over. And then understanding hat placement. So, you know, where is the ball supposed to be in that time, you know, and these things kind of probably, you know, you talk about leverage, whether it's horizontal leverage or vertical leverage, and we base that on our vertical leverage. You know, that's basically my leverage to the defender, and my horizontal leverage is, you know, my relative position between the defender and the ball and myself. So understanding where your hat placement goes is pretty critical in being able to get the block down as well. I'm not so that I'm going to be, and I used to be this way. I will tell you, like, you know, if you'd have just done this with your foot here, if you'd have just had your elbow here or your hand here. I'm not going to get uptight about that. They're the ones out there playing the game. Okay, it's difficult the way it is anyway. If they're going to play really hard, that's number one. Play really hard and stay true to those 5 fundamentals. Then I think we got a good shot at being really successful at the end of the day. And the less that you're going to clutter a kid's mind with, all these things that probably, in the better player you are, the more little detailed and fine-tuned things you want. I get that, and we'll give those things to guys that are a lot more advanced. But the idea here is they should all have the ability to teach each other all these 5 fundamentals, see on film what's breaking down, and teach each other what's happening, because we talk about that a lot as well. As I'm a coach. We got a graduate assistant, Stephen Matos, that helps out as well as 2 coaches with about 18 guys, 19 guys in the fall. Maybe you don't see everything. I prefer every one of those guys to be a coach and how they interact with each other, because when we have guys that can teach other guys and share information, hey, this works really well for me, why don't you try it this way or that way? That's, then you're starting to get like 18 coaches. That's probably an exaggeration, but that's the idea. Understand the fundamentals, be able to perform those fundamentals, play really hard and physical and fast, and let's go play. Trying to have every single special scenario greased up and ready to go is mind-blowing to me right now, and I can't say that I didn't try to do that quite a bit, but I don't see any reason to do that in my mind anymore, at least at this point in my career.
Okay, Coach. And the other thing you mentioned on the prior question was how you visited Coach Mudd and kind of professional development. I'm always curious about this, coaches at all levels, is how often do you go and just, obviously right now it's a little difficult with Zoom. We all we can do is really Zoom. But historically, how often in the off season do you go visit other coaches in clinic, like privately and one-on-one with guys? And who are you mentioned Coach Mudd, but who else are the kind of guys you go to?
Well, Butch Berry's been a guy who's also a Howard Mudd guy too, and Butch was at Tampa Bay. He was the assistant O-line coach there. He was at Miami. I think he's actually with Green Bay now, and doing some stuff. But I suppose there's a circle of guys that I discuss a lot of things about, but at the end of the day, I've always been, and I think offensive line coaches are always open to talking to anybody about anything that they're doing. I used to joke around with a buddy of mine who's now the offensive line coach at Western Illinois. And I said, I got to make a clinic someday that just says everything works, okay? Because everything really does work. It's like, when do you use it is the bigger question, And, we would joke around with that a little bit more so, because you hear certain things at a clinic and you want to take things away. And, everyone always says, if you take 2 or 3 things out of that, that's fantastic. And some things that you can use and make your guys better. Visiting one-on-one or on these Zooms has been good. The stuff over the pandemic has been a lot of Zooms, quite honestly, talking to guys about things that we do. But for the most part, I have probably done less clinics, like presented less than certainly than I've tried to glean some information from. And what I look for now, and even guys that I'm talking to, is I want simplicity. Can somebody offer simplicity, something that I'm doing right now, and can they make it more simple and more effective that way? And I know that's probably easier said than done. I think all coaches will say that, and I agree with that. But, when you get an idea as an offensive line coach at a clinic and you look at that and say, wow, man, that's awesome. I can teach my guys to do that. I can really envision that and see that. I don't know, 9 times out of 10, maybe more, you come back and you try to teach it and one guy can understand it and do it well. And you have this great vision in your mind, and it really doesn't flow as well as you want it to. And, maybe over the course of a couple of years, 3 years, you get it to where you want it to be. But when you can truly, I'll go back to this, when you can really get a group of guys to play extremely hard, okay? They might not be technically correct all the time, and that's okay. If they're playing very, very hard all the time, you got a shot. So how often do I go out and do that? I don't think I did a lot of it in my younger career. It was mostly clinics. It was, sitting in groups. Up until probably 5, 6 years ago, I just made it a point that, I got a little time here. I'm going to hop on a plane and fly out and see somebody and watch some film and talk football. And, I you probably would realize this too, but just the simple one-on-one interaction, asking questions and engaging each other has been a little bit more rewarding than just a bunch of, I shouldn't say it that way, but a whole group, sitting there talking. You feel probably a lot more free to ask the quote unquote stupid question. Am I stupid for asking this question type of question? But there's a lot of information that I guess you can take away in either scenario. It's been a little bit better one-on-one right now.
Oh, I agree 100%. Like, I mean, I love doing these clinics. Obviously, I send them out all the time, but, and I've talked to coaches privately about that. Is like, I can't wait till I can go visit a coach again and just talk. Like, it's so much easier to just talk one on one and have a whiteboard in front of you than it is trying to share a screen or share what like a digital whiteboard and try to explain. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's so much better and so much just questions flow better. I agree 100%. Kind of just continuing with offensive line play before we kind of get to in game stuff is, and everybody's a little different on this opinion, but like what traits? I mean, you've developed NFL level linemen, All American linemen. What traits do you think make us like a truly successful offensive lineman? Obviously, probably differs a little bit, but like, what are the common ones you see?
In recruiting, and talking to young men about this and coaches too, I think there's some tangibles and there's some intangibles. And unfortunately, intangibles are intangible because you really can't see them. So that makes that a little bit more difficult. But athleticism is the number one physical attribute. Is he athletic? Can he control his body, move around in space, change direction, do all those things? If he can do that stuff, I can probably teach him to do some things, not being on the ground. And is he willing to hit? Does he enjoy that part of the game? And I know that kind of sounds stupid, but, they don't have to be just complete maulers and road graders and things like that, but a willingness to really crave the physical part of the game, and I'm highly athletic. Those two things are a big deal. I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe some people would disagree with me. I think blocking is fairly natural, to be quite honest. You see a kid on film who's only played offensive line for 2 years, and he can play with his arms extended and run around and understands where the ball is going and how to feel pressure on that defender. That those are natural things, and I love seeing that on film. Intangible things, how much is that young man going to put forth, or how much time and effort is he going to put forth in learning about football, not just about offensive line play? Just does he love to learn about football? Understanding. An offensive lineman don't have to understand formations or personnel necessarily, but if they're interested in understanding, I don't know, you can go down the list, understanding the general scheme. That some kids come in, they don't even know, okay, what direction is the play and what's the snap count. You got to get them to where they're comfortable understanding, okay, I want this split, I want this alignment as an offensive lineman. We're working together. They stemmed really quickly. It doesn't phase them at all. And that stuff takes reps, but they have to be willing to put a lot of that time in to do that. And then the other intangible is just, they have to give extraordinary effort. And I think every coach has a different way of saying that, but if you don't play hard on film, you're probably not going to play hard. If you don't practice hard, you're probably not going to play hard. One of the greatest tragedies of all is having a young man who's the pinnacle of his high school or his football career is getting a Division I football scholarship, and he's like, takes that sigh of relief, says, "Oh yeah, I made it." The work really just is starting right now. That's not where it ends. So I think there's a couple things that are intangible that you try to dig into as much as possible by asking them not off the wall questions, but just asking questions and ask the coaches questions, and then obviously the stuff you can tell on film is just being physical and being an athlete. So those four things, I feel like I've stuck with those 4 things for probably 26 years, and still trying to find ways to I guess dig into their heads a little bit more to really get a feel for, I guess, how hard they're willing to work. That's a really big deal to me. So.
Good coach. And then kind of as we transition to going towards the end of this, I kind of want to ask you a couple quick questions about game day. First, what does your pregame look like for your offensive line? Everybody's a little different on that, but I'm always curious about that.
We come out there and run around a little bit. Do some movements or some steps. We do a little bit of hitting, a little bit of pass pro. Go against the D-line, real abbreviated fairly quickly, and then say, let's go. I mean, they're already pretty sky high. I'm not, quote unquote, hey, is in the barn. I just know we got to work off a little bit of energy right there in the pregame, and then, we're going to run some plays, go back in the locker room, come back out and play the game. So
Okay.
not a lot to it,
Some people make it complicated. Some people make it very simple, Coach. And then kind of my second part to this is, I'm assuming since you're the offensive line coach, you're on the field during the game. What are your responsibilities during the game? Obviously, your eyes are on your offensive line, but are you in charge of any adjustments? What are your in-game responsibilities?
I get to watch it from the sideline. That's no. They don't allow me to speak to anybody other than our graduate assistants. No, what typically in not having to coordinate the offense or call a play is helpful to me. I know some offensive line coaches can do that so much better than myself. I always kind of joke, I'm already coordinating half the offense with 5 guys out there. Sometimes we got 6 offensive linemen out there anyway. So ultimately, the stuff that me and our graduate assistant is up in the box, what we're looking at is point of attack. So I will watch the point of attack in a run game. He will watch the backside and try to get a good look at probably linebacker, lineman, but we're pretty spot on with the front before it gets rolling. And then when it comes to pass pro, he takes his sideline, I got my sideline, and we just kind of work through there. Now, what I do maybe a little bit differently is I do have a sideline book. I guess I don't have that with me, but I'll write down, like it's a 20-page book, grease marker, grease pen, whatever. And it'll just say play 1, and I'll, tick the front end really quick where the linebackers are. Maybe we screwed something up. Maybe we did something good. I'll circle that offensive lineman, make the quick note. I'll also obviously write down what the play was at the top of it. I'll flip the book over, go to play number 2. Write the play down, and then any note we got to take on that play. Sometimes, we actually did have a 20-play drive last fall, so I did use every page of that for one time. But when they come off the sideline, when they come off the field now and they sit down, we start working in reverse order, last play back. And if there's a question on the third play of the drive, where we ended up maybe giving up a pressure, or we kind of screwed something up, we talk about that and maybe jog their memory if they do not remember it, and we don't have a great maybe inventory ourselves as coaches exactly what happened, and then we just move on from there. From Coach Kolnicki's point of view, the only real reason for me to talk to him during the game is probably like, which way would you prefer to run something at this point in the game? But beyond that, we're just fixing stuff with our guys on the sideline for the most part, and the book's been very helpful. I've actually done that now for, I don't even know, maybe 15 years. I've used the book. It was a great idea. Kind of just had it made and moved on from there. I always thought it'd be a great idea to patent it, but I don't think I could get it sold.
Oh no, I've never. That sounds like a fantastic idea. I've never heard anybody mention like an O-line sideline book. So when they come off, that's fantastic. And then last question I got for you, Coach, because we know offensive line's like its own little, I don't know, unit within a team. It's just a special group, and chemistry is obviously one of the most important things with that unit. How have you maintained relationships, that chemistry, and kind of built that during this weird COVID period? Obviously, you're kind of limited like Zooms and everything, but how have you been able to keep in touch with them, and kind of what have you done to kind of keep that bond together?
We've actually been, I don't know, fortunate. Like guys have come back, but ever since let's see, we had spring break in the middle of our spring ball, and we didn't come back from spring break then. So we went to Zoom right after that. Now, some weeks we were able to talk football, and some weeks we were not, which is fine. But we were always able to check in with them daily. So we've done everything at Buffalo. From we have a weekly culture meeting on Wednesdays that I'm in charge of a group of guys that are not offensive linemen necessarily. I think there's a couple offensive linemen in my group that way. And then with the offensive line, we would go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whether we were talking football or just reminding them, hey, this is coming up. How are you doing? We had guys scattered in Canada, Carolinas, and so Zoom was the absolute best way to do that. And I would say we did not, and I guess some days it might have been just like a 5-minute meeting with the guys, and just seeing them. The other thing that I did for them, I had started doing, is just opening up my Zoom meeting about 20 minutes early and just let them come in and talk to each other. They didn't have that locker room hangout or anything like that. So that was a way for those guys to just kind of hang out and chat to each other. They could see each other and do that before we kind of got into the meetings. I guess whatever our meeting was about. But now that they are back, we're still not able to just go visit with them. I can see them from a distance and, wave hi, how you doing? But they're around each other in a not a complete capacity right now. I guess they're in pods, but they've done a really good job. And like I said, I kind of alluded to, maybe I didn't say, but the room that I have right now that I came into was pretty darn special. And it's definitely got a lot of guys that are willing to help each other out and teach each other football and, do whatever needs to be done to be successful. So Zoom has kind of been where it's at. I don't have anything other than that really, but just the number of Zooms, I would say we're wearing it out pretty good,
Awesome, Coach. Well, I thank you for your time today. I wish you and your players and your family nothing but safety and health, and I wish you luck outside of whenever you play Ohio University.
Horns up.
Thank you, Coach, and have a good rest of your day, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you.